Hello, so I'm going to show you how to take a completed weaving and turn it into a little pouch. And so this is my completed weaving on the loom. We have our knots on the back side of it, the side that we can see all popping up, the bunny ears. First thing you're going to do is trim some of those bunny ears. You don't want to trim them too close to the knot, and then it will come untied, but you do want to trim a little bit of them off. This little bit can be thrown in the trash. You're going to flip it over, pull the tape off the back. You'll probably have a piece of tape back here with your name on it. You're going to pull that off as well. Tape can be thrown away, and then you're going to cut the warp strings down the middle. You have these two loose ones, those stay loose, and then you cut these right down the middle. You're going to carefully flip this over, and you're going to tie 2 strings at a time. So I'm going to start with these 2 here on this end, so I take them out of the teeth, and I loop, swoop, tie once. It's the first step to tying your shoes. And I'm tying to hold that yarn in place, and then loop, swoop, and tie a second time, making sure that I don't pull too tight so that this knot goes up inside the weaving or makes the weaving get wobbly or wavy. So now I take the next 2 strings, and I need to be careful not to pull these strings, because I can pull these strings clear out of my weaving. I can pull them all the way out and then my weaving could fall apart. So I just get them out of the teeth of the cardboard loom. I tie and stop when it hits the purple, the edge of the weaving, and then I tie one more time, and this time I pull tight to the first knot. So the first tie, I stop when I get to the purple. The second one, I pull tight against the next one. So that leaves 3 strings. So I'm going to tie the next 2 first. Loop, swoop, tie, stop when I get to the purple. And then tie one more time. And then I take 1 string from here and the last string. So I take 1 from the last knot and then the last string, and I tie those. Alright, and then you can trim these down. Don't trim them too short, because if they come untied, you didn't tie very tight, and they come untied, you really need some long strings to tie. So now I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to pull these strings and take the first 2. Okay, so on the other side of the weaving here, I started on the right hand side and started tying knots that way because that's where the end of the string was. So on this one, I'm going to start on the left hand side because the end of the string is on the left hand side. I'm going to start over here and tie the knots. I want to tie the first knot to hold that string in place. And so by tying it just like this, stopping when I get to the red, I've held it in place, and now I can tie it one more time tight, and then the red shouldn't come undone. So now I take the next 2, and then I have this last string, so I take 1 from the last knot to tie with this last string. And then I'm going to trim these down. Okay, I can remove it from the loom. This is the back side with all the knots. This is the front side that looks nice and pretty. So now I'm going to make a pouch. I can do it a couple of different ways. I can just fold it in half like this, and I can have this long skinny pouch. I could put pencils in it probably, something that's long and skinny. If I wanted, I could fold it more like this and have a flap that comes over like that. And so I'm going to fold it like this to make a flap. So the first thing that I want to do is, these warp strings aren't very pretty to look at, so I'm going to bend this back and lay this down, and then I take yarn that matches, because I don't want you to be able to see it, but you may want to see your yarn And the stitching, maybe if I chose a black, that might look nice, the stitches on the side. So it's up to you, whatever color you want. It doesn't have to be the same color as you're weaving. So I'm going to make these two ends meet, and then I'm going to tie a knot at the end. I'm going to take these two strings, create a loop, put the ends of the strings through the loop, and pull. So I have 3 layers. This is bent over to create 2 layers, and then a 3rd layer here. So I'm going to go through all 3 layers. And before I pull it all the way through, I'm going to put my needle through this loop here. And I'm going to create a whip stitch. So I'm going to be going around the edge of this. So I'm going to always come from the back side, the side further from me, and pull through. And then come back from the back side again. And I'm making sure to keep my needle along the edge, and I'm just going through this first warp string is along the edge here. I'm just going around it. So I'm starting to get this loopy effect, which is called a whip stitch. So I'm always coming from the underneath and pushing the needle up. And this is a weaving needle. Okay, and now I'm at the end, so I want to go through, but before I pull this all the way through, I want to put my needle through it. So I want to go through this big loop and then pull this tight, and that'll make it somewhat of a knot like I have here, but I need to do it one more time. So I'm going to go back through and make a loop and pull that tight, and now it's a knot. And I'm going to knot that, cut that off. I'm going to trim these bunny ears a little bit. So you're going to have these little knots, but you can see that that's stitched on the side there, and that's stitched closed. So now I'm going to flip it over and do the same on the other side. You don't want to ever untie any of these strings here. Even though they don't look the prettiest, you don't want to do that. So I'm going to get some more yarn because this wouldn't be enough. And it's hard to estimate how much yarn you're going to need. And that feels wasteful there, but maybe I can use that somewhere else. You're going to thread the needle, make the 2 ends meet, make a loop, go through the loop with both ends and pull to make a knot. Bring your needle all the way to the end, away from the knot. And then you're going to start. Okay, so this is the back side of my pouch where my knots are, so I want to make sure that I keep my knots on the same side. So I'm going to start here and go through all 3 of those layers again, but I'm going to start here so my knot is on this same side that it is over here. I don't want to put my needle this way because then the knot will be here and the knot on the other side is on the back. So I want the knots to match up. So I'm going to go through all 3 layers. And again, before I pull this all the way through, I put my needle through the 2 strings so I can make. So I'm going to keep coming from the back to create that whip stitch all the way down to the bottom again. And I'm not putting my needle way over here because that would make the pouch even smaller, and the whip stitch would be going from here to there, and we don't want that, so we want it just along the edge. Okay, and so now I'm at the end, so I'm going to come through, but I'm not going to pull all the way through because I'm going to leave this a loop so I can put my needle through it and then pull. And again, that's not enough, that's not a tight enough knot, so I'm going to go through it one more time and through the loop and pull. Alright, and then you're going to snip that off, and I'm going to snip the bunny ears on this one. Okay, and so essentially now I have a little pouch, but I don't like these strings here to show, So I'm going to fold this over, tuck these strings in. So I'm going to wad up all these strings in a nice little thing. I'm going to tuck and bend this over to hide those strings. I'm going to hold this down with the scissors because I need to tie this in a knot again. Okay, and then I'm just going to stitch this up. I'm going to make sure the knot is on this side, so I'm going to start on this side, pull through so the knot is there, and I'm just going to come up, then back down, and this is called a straight stitch. So I come up from the back, I go down from the front, and then up from the front, down through the back, up to the front, and down to the back. Alright, and then come back up to the front, and now I need to tie a knot. So the way that I tie a knot is I take my needle and go through some of the stitches and make a loop there, put my needle through the loop and pull. And then I'm going to snip this off, snip these bunny ears off, and now if I bend it over, I have a nice little pouch with a flap. Okay, and there you have your finished pouch. And this one has a flap. If you didn't want to do a flap, you would have just brought this up to the top here and sewed it, and it would be a longer pouch without a flap.